especially on scorecard of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And yes, he's told you that I will be speaking to various members of parliament, at least to hear what their expectations are. But remember, this comes in wake of high cost of living and also reviewing of several laws in the country. But I would like to hear from Kagushia, Member of Parliament, and I would like to hear what exactly they are expecting from the address. And are we going to hear, as they are hopeful and optimistic, that the President is going to touch on matters, high cost of living and fuel, but what are their expectations really? Mheshimiwa, thank you for giving me a few minutes. I understand you've given me, I don't want to mention the minutes, but there are expectations, but this comes in wake of high cost of living and also the Kenyans grappling with high cost of fuel. Are we expecting this is going to be part of what President William Ruto is going to address? And I understand also there was a parliamentary group meeting in State House, and somehow he expressed himself and he said that his hands are quite tied on this matter.
Thank you very much, Liz. I believe you have done well to give me this opportunity to give the expectations that we have. And we have many expectations that we have in the State of the Nation address today. And one of the things that we have is how the President is planning to manage, and how he is managing and how he has managed the economy. Especially at this most trying moment, this most difficult moment when the economy world over is depressed. Mm-hmm. And yes, the Kenyans, just like the other world citizens, are experiencing hardship and the economic outlook everywhere in the world. And Kenyans are also not left behind. And one of the things that the President should probably be addressing is on how he is going to help address some of these challenges that Kenyans are facing. And when this is happening, one of the other most important things that has affected Kenya, just like it has affected many African countries, maybe now unlike most of the developed world, is the cost of the cost of public debt that we are carrying on our shoulders. That we are carrying so much debt that was taken, which was supposed to have been producing returns, and that was supposed to expand the economic base for this country so that we do not suffer so much in terms of interest rates. And also we have economic growth that would be able to cover the increase in interest rates. But that has not happened over the years. We have borrowed so much money, and we have not been able to, develop the economy so much. Yet we still have to pay back the money that we had borrowed. For example, like we have the Eurobond that is now coming to maturity in December to May. And the whole world is watching Kenya to see if we are going to default. And you can understand the pressure that the President is having at this particular time, where he's looking for money to pay $2 billion in total that he's supposed to pay.
But Mheshimiwa President William Ruto was also in parliament, not parliament, but in government, in the previous government, and he understood that we had debts. That means he never planned, or rather the Kenya Kwanza government didn't plan well, and there were these challenges even before he took over.
I don't understand what you're saying, that Kenya Kwanza government did not plan well, because we are paying the debts. How would you say we are not planning well when we are paying debts? Kenya has not defaulted on its debt obligation, isn't it? Yeah. William Samoei Ruto is on record criticizing the borrowing that was happening right, left, and center in the handshake government. He was out there. You can't deny him that. He did raise his voice and distanced himself from that kind of borrowing. But he's also the most unfortunate president that he has now to come and pay back. Where does anyone expect that the President is going to pay back from?
That means,
does he go,
in short, what you're telling us...
Does he pay from his pocket?
In short, what you're telling Kenyans, that they have to cope with the situation as it is today.
Indeed. Kenyans will have to pay the debts that we took. If there was a way of avoiding those debts, I'm sure we would. But now we can't. And we can't default. A hoping $2 billion. Kenyans should know. The money for this expressway that they see here was taken, but was not paid. is now when the president is supposed to pay for it. The money that was taken in 2017, or even earlier actually, for the Eurobond that was supposed to build the SGR, it was never paid. It is President Ruto who is paying it now. The money which was taken for fuel subsidy, which ended up all the way to 67 billion, that Kenyans were asked to pay less in fuel. It was not paid.
But Weshmo also, I
was not
remember
paid.
the CS Churchill
It was
telling
not
us.
paid. Look, it was not paid. Kenyans are supposed to pay for it now, 67 billion. Are you
Nothing
getting?
is going to change anytime
So
soon.
it was a lie that there was any fuel subsidy, because government was also not paying the people who were subsidizing the fuel on behalf of the government. So President Ruto is now supposed to pay that money today. Are you getting?
Yeah.
So President Ruto has the most unfortunate task of clearing the mess that was done for over 10 years in the last handshake government.
I remember.
And he's managing it well, because ensuring that the country is not reneging on its debt obligation is a very good thing. But I would also want to point out this. One of the things that has made Kenyans suffer high economic cost of living is because of the depreciation of the Kenya shilling. And Kenyans need to understand some of the economies around the depreciation of Kenya shilling. Because some of the people imagine that William Samoei Ruto should have done some miracle to prevent this. But you know, the case of dollar is a case of demand and supply on the dollar itself. For a whopping 10 years, we were receiving so much dollar in Kenya. So much dollar. Receiving. And why were we receiving this dollar? In terms of loans, which were coming from other countries. And we were receiving. Now, a time has come when we can't receive these dollars anymore.
It's payback time.
It's payback time. Do you know what that means? You have to look for dollar wherever it is, so that you can pay back the mzungu, the dollar they gave you.
How long are we going to
getting?
be in this situation?
Are you getting?
Weshmo? Yes, I'm
I
getting
mean, this
you.
situation can... Sometimes I say Uhuru borrowed for two governments. He borrowed for actually three governments. He borrowed for his government. He borrowed on behalf of the 10 years government that is going to come. And he also borrowed on behalf of the other 10 years government that is going to come. In other words, some of the impact of the borrowing that was done in the last 10 years, we are going to have it until 2042. Some of the impact. And the only thing now can happen is to have a prudent manager who is going to handle the situation in a way that even though Kenyans suffer, eventually things improve. And I believe that is exactly what William Samoei Ruto is doing as a president, because you have to give it to him. He has what you call the presence of mind. He has what you call the concern. He has what you call the leadership, because he is personally leading from the front. He's not taking it from the back.
Kenyans also, yes, I hear you.
So Kenyans should not be very hard on William Samoei Ruto because of finding this country in this kind of a situation where now he has to dig deeper into Kenyans' pockets to be able to pay the loans that have been taken. Are you getting? If you look at the supplementary budget that we are doing now, you realize it has cut on travel. I mean, it has put extremely stringent austerity measures. And that has been happening for a couple of months. The only person whom we would not want to stop traveling is the president himself. Because the moment,
other office, they can stop traveling.
Yeah,
but
all the other
we
offices must reduce their travel. But the president and the deputy president must travel more.
Before
so
we
that
get
they can
into
go
the
and help us as a
supplementary
country.
budget,
Yeah.
I understand there was G2G plan on the fuel, and this has not, I don't know whether clearly has worked or not, but there were much expectations that through this G2G plan, at least the
it has
fuel
worked
prices,
very well. But what has happened is that it has slowed down the rate of depreciation of the Kenya shilling. Are you getting?
Yeah.
It has slowed down the rate of depreciation of the Kenya shilling. Kenya shilling would probably have been exchanging the dollar at 200 Kenya shillings now, if it were not for the G2G intervention. So the G2G intervention has helped to slow down the rate. Are you getting?
But not the prices of fuel.
Not the prices of fuel, because the price of fuel is first affected by the dollar itself. It's also affected by other external factors, like the high cost of crude oil globally. And of course, if it falls, if the crude oil prices fall, you will definitely see also the fall in Kenya. Are you getting?
Yeah.
So But as of now, we are contending with those high prices.
But our neighbors, Tanzania, the other day, they announced that their fuel prices at least have gone a bit lower. Then one is left wondering.
Just separate fiction from facts. Some of these declarations are fiction. The other day, the president of Tanzania had said that they have sufficient reserves on dollar. And she was actually laughing off Kenya. But sooner than she had put that microphone down, she started running helter-skelter to deal with the issue of dollar, because they actually don't have those reserves she was talking about. They are so hit by the dollar and their Tanzania shilling depreciation. Just as Kenya has. The cost of fuel in Namanga here, if you go, is just as much as it is in Kenya. So that declaration cannot help much. What will happen is once the crude oil prices fall, they will fall in Tanzania, in Uganda, and also in Kenya, isn't it? And as of now, the fall has not been experienced in Tanzania, except that declaration. In fact, Tanzania has even been suffering much more than Kenya, because not only have they been having high cost of fuel, but the fuel itself has also not been available. We have seen Tanzanian queuing in lengthy queues in the petrol stations looking for fuel, which sometimes they're not able to get. I remember we had that situation here in Kenya like 2 or 3 years ago. And at some point, Kenyans were saying, we'd rather even have this commodity selling a little bit higher than not have it at all. Because the inconvenience, of course, of going to the petrol station and you cannot find fuel, you can imagine how much that inconvenience is. But nevertheless, I empathize with Kenyans, including myself, because I'm also suffering the high cost of living. But it's a situation that needs to be managed. Kukula deni ni kulipa. We really have to pay. And that repayment of the debt is causing also these fluctuations you're seeing in the shilling. Of course, with other factors like the interest rates in America and such, all those are causing the pressure on the Kenya shilling.
There is a matter you've mentioned over and over on a depreciation of our Kenyan shilling. And I have been thinking, then what ought to be done for the stabilization of our shilling, not only in East Africa, but globally?
Well, one of the things that we must do is to ensure that we get more exports from Kenya, so that we get more dollar. Because it's just an issue of supply and demand. Once you have less demand, once you have more supply and less demand, then you know how that twists the whole equation. Once you have more demand and less supply, then of course the depreciation would definitely have to go high. If you have more demand of dollar and less supply of dollar, Kenya shilling would definitely have to depreciate. So the only way we can handle this is by ensuring that we are doing more exports. We have the market that the Deputy President and the President have been looking for coffee and for other commodities. We ensure that we can export as much as possible so that we get the dollar inflows. Then we ensure that we also reduce imports as much as possible so that we are not importing what we can manufacture in Kenya. For example, stopping the import of things like furniture, toothpicks, house items, garments that can be produced here in Kenya. That way it will ensure that we don't have the outflows of dollar, and we ensure that we are exporting more of the fresh produce, cash crops like coffee, like tea, pyrethrum, and all those other cash crops that we can be able to export, so that we have more dollar. But once we have that, then we stabilize. And that's why the government is probably putting a little bit more efforts in terms of manufacturing, putting the industrial parks all over, ensuring that we have more production in the country. Otherwise, yes, the situation is difficult, it is hard, but you've also to understand that the situation has also met a person who is matching up to who is rising up to the occasion and who is ready.
In short, you're saying we are in the right trajectory.
We are in the right trajectory, definitely.
I understand also there are hits and misses, and President William Ruto on some sectors he's gotten it right. The Hustler Fund, how far are we as a country?
The Hustler Fund is still circulating. People are borrowing and returning, isn't it? I know there has been a little decrease of what has not been taken up, because the president did put 50 billion. I think what has been taken so far should be around 30-something billion. So
can we term this as a success?
Of course, it's a success, a very big success. It's a success because Kenyans are able now to access soft loans and mobile money more cheaply than they were getting before. If you look at us having 19 million transactions in Kenya, 19 million people who are transacting on this in Kenya is not a mean feat, and it means that many Kenyans are taking advantage of this. The only issue is that it's very individual, it's very personal. Sometimes someone may not tell you that they have the hustler fund. Could be even you have some 10,000.
Unfortunately, I've not taken Asla fund, but maybe
Why
in
is
future.
it unfortunate?
Because I've known.
Have you taken other products?
I know
mobile?
some.
Have you taken other
No,
mobile?
Mweshima, no, we cannot go there for now. I'll tell you one day.
So what is happening is that instead of taking other mobile money from other providers who are giving it at a high cost, you'd rather take the hustler fund because they're same, but being given at a lower cost. And for that reason, then Kenyans are not ripped off like they have been ripped off before. Yeah.
There is the high taxation. This is the last matter because I know you have to go somewhere else. And which, according to some leaders, is carrying away investors in this country.
Yeah.
And Parliament was part of the process.
Yeah.
What are we likely to do?
What is this?
High taxation because of the Finance Act. Now it's a bill. And according to some leaders, especially from the other divide, they feel that this is carrying away investors.
I think how you need to look at the taxation is what is being taxed. Are you getting? There are some areas where government did give tax reliefs. There are some areas where government did zero rate taxes, especially anything which had to do with the building local capacity. Government did zero rate or even remove taxes altogether. But some of the areas where we have to import some of the things that can be made in Kenya, government did also introduce new taxes on that. And so investors, for example, like the many Chinese who are in Kenya selling furniture, definitely that is likely to push them off. But how is it likely also to help our economy? It's going to have our young people producing more and also getting into the furniture business and producing locally.
Yes.
That builds us in the long run. In the short run, of course, it might look like it is punitive. But in the long run, it's going to be more helpful to our country. And so that cannot be a miss. That can only be an addition. And again, the burden that we have today of the high cost of public debt, it's something that Kenyans will definitely have to carry because the money was borrowed on their behalf. So
it's a burden they have to agree
it's a burden that they would have to carry. It's painful though. It's very painful. Kenyans are really feeling it. Now, the only problem is that they are getting upset at the wrong person because there's a gentleman who is trying to clear that mess, but he has to also be available to be criticized because he has to do it, because how else do you survive as a country? You can only survive by honoring your public obligations and your external obligations and foreign obligations. If you don't do that, then definitely you're not a country.
It's going to be messier.
You are not going to be a country if you don't do that. So William Samoei Ruto will have to carry that graciously. But once he's done with managing, those circumstances, definitely then Kenyans will understand why that had to be done.
Thank you so much for allowing yourself to be here this morning. I will be talking to you later when the president is done with his address. And definitely you've heard from members of parliament, especially Kagusha. And later on, we're going to hear from other members of parliament. And I assure you, we have a lot from this side, expectations and everything. And I'm not alone. I am with Moiga William and also Apollo Kamau. And we'll be taking you through this journey. Back to you in studio.
Well, thank you so much, Liz Mutuku, for that. And of course, TV47 is a place to be for all those updates as even they prepare for as they wait for the president to give that State of the Nation address. Of course, so many things expected to be addressed today, even from the mood of Kenyans. From our question of the day, you can tell that Kenyans are really not as happy with this government. So I don't know what the president can actually tell them to revive the hope that they gave to Kenyans when they got into power.
Well, his work is cut out. He knows that Kenyans are expecting a lot of answers from him. This is an opportune time for him to address these issues: cost of living, fuel prices, high taxation. He's the president. And he has the opportunity today, so we just have to wait and see.
Right. And even as you mentioned, the whole feedback from Kenyans, just to mention, but a few, like around 5 of them, Jonathan Amunyot says he will mention low cost of fertilizers and employed teachers, TRS, I assume that teachers then insist on 2.75% universal health care. Castor Judy, we are hoping nothing. Samuel Moses, nothing except the obvious one. Dianga Charles, more and more promises. Robert Wankare, planting trees. Dennis Mutai, nimetenga, niko na plan in 2 weeks, 6 months. Alex Baraza, lies only. And finally, Dan Khan says, tumetenga. You can really feel the kind of mood on that expectations. This conversation definitely goes on even as we anticipate the president making his inaugural speech in the House of...
Yes. And at around 11 a.m. he is expected to be undertaking an exercise on housing in Ruiru.
Yes.
Ruiru.
Yeah, Ruiru, yes.
Yes, in Ruiru at 11 a.m. before he proceeds to address the bicameral parliament later today.
Well, this is where we dock for this morning. Thank you so much for watching Morning Cafe and for keeping us company throughout all the conversation, including that issue of intermarriage and culture. A very interesting conversation indeed. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Have a lovely day.
And speaking of matters, culture and the language, I've remembered I have a quote from Nelson Mandela. He says, if you speak to a man in a language that he understands, that goes to the head. But if you speak to a man in his language, it goes straight to the heart. So, kina Stanley na wenzenu, learn your languages. Have a good one.
Right. Who told you I don't really know my language? I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyarunkita. Have yourself an amazing day ahead on behalf of the entire team. But this team continues to give you an extensive coverage of this particular State of the Nation address. We're taking a short breather and coming back. Motukio TV47 will be right here with you, just giving you more insights on the same. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.